job immersing yourself in that role. What are your personal views on assisted suicide?
Well, I usually don't talk about that. I don't. It just isn't.
Do you have a newfound respect, perhaps, for Dr. Kevorkian?
What I say is I got to know Dr. Kevorkian. I got to understand the fact that he had this vision and that he was an extraordinary man who was really authentically interested in helping people, helping patients. He really was. And there's something about one thing that struck me more than anything, and that was the idea that, you know, he turned away 98% of the people that came to him. And most of the people that he sort of said, well, come back, see how you feel in a month. Most of them didn't come back. And surprisingly, their relatives would write Jack and say, they're feeling much better. They're not as anxious. They feel much more in control of their lives, just knowing that you were there. I think that is, when you think of it, it's, to me, it's somewhat profound. That just the knowledge of him being someone who they could go to relieved their intense anxiety and difficulty in coping because of the lack of control of it. So I think there's something about that. That's what I could address to you. I could talk about specific details, not so much about how I feel about it, because it's sort of beside the point.
Thank you.
To your left in the middle.
Congratulations, it's Jeannie Wolf. How are you?
Hi, Jeannie.
I talked to Dr. Kevorkian on the way in, and he said, first of all, that you were more him than him. He was astounded at your performance. The other thing he talked about was that since you've made this show, this movie, people have been more willing to come and tell him their views. Things that they felt beforehand that they didn't feel were socially acceptable to share. So I want to ask you, first, the challenge, the acting challenge of this, and second, do you find that, even though you want to be careful about your views, that people are sharing theirs with you?
I think the people, surprisingly, many more people who I come in contact with sort of are ambivalent about it. But they are always lean, because you know, 70% of people, if I could say this, I think I'm accurate, we're for Dr. Kevorkian, by the way. And it's always the kind of thing you hear, but nobody comes out and says anything about it. But people sort of sympathize with it. But it's not vociferous. Now, as far as you said challenge to do it? Yeah, the acting challenge. Well, it was interesting because I thought I would just look at data on Jack Kevorkian. I didn't meet him. Barry Levinson did. And I deliberately didn't meet him. There's some, you know, it's a great opportunity to meet again, but we didn't have enough time. And I found that I could work with all the, there's a lot of data. There's hours, reams of film. And this guy, Jeffrey Feiger, his lawyer, spoke candidly, I'm just on the camera somewhere, about a half hour straight about Jack, and I really learned a lot about it. I think what happened with Jack is when he was fighting for his cause and his beliefs, I think a lot of the relationship to the media was in sound bites. He was stigmatized as a Dr. Death kind of guy. He doesn't sort of his social whatever you want to call it, his social acumen. It just isn't. Sometimes it's not as conventional as we come to know it. However, you know, the longer you're with him, which I got to know him after the picture, and I'm so glad that I got to know him and see him and talk to him, and he's got that intelligence and the kind of person you like to ask anything any question to, and you know they're going to come up with something different than you ever expected, and they do. And because the mind is so, his mind is so alive, and so it thinks in such a different way. It's unpredictable.
I know you
One question to the right.
I know you went through a physical transformation. You lost some weight, I believe, for this one. Is this particularly hard? Have you been through much harder where you had to change?
Well, losing weight, no, gaining is much easier. I wish I had to gain weight for a part. But because the losing the weight for parts are, that's a little more difficult because you can't just diet, you have to exercise. You know, when I'm of the Oscar Wilde school, whenever I get the urge to exercise, I just lie down until it passes. So this is my thing. And losing the weight was tough. I wish I'd have lost more, frankly. However, the idea that he was so finicky in that way and had this sort of obsession with fat and loved sweets and would sneak them on the side. This was very interesting about Jack. Said a lot about Jack.
Yeah.
But what were you saying? What did you ask?
Hold on.